So welcome everybody, we're going to talk about Kanban at scale with humour. I would like to introduce the question policy for this session. Please ask questions, ideally out loud, because I've got so many screens going on. I'm very unlikely to look at the chat, but someone else might point it out if you're not. But yeah, if you just want to ask a question. It'll work much better if you do. Right, in that case, let's get into it. So what is it all about? Well, I think we're getting good at this team level Kanban stuff. So when you talk to people, yeah, we're doing Kanban, and they tend to be talking at one level, the level of actual delivery. So I'm calling that team level, but yeah, you get what I mean with that. But actually, the big benefits come at scale. Now, how do you scale Kanban? Well, if you ask Mr. Anderson, he'll tell you that Kanban is automatically a scaled method. It's scaled from the start. It was always intended. You don't have to do anything special to it, which is true. But at the same time, there's probably some stuff you're going to have to do to make it work for you. I'm just going to quickly change my audio to noise removal, just in case there's background noise. Now I don't need the other thing going. So let's get into it. So let's look at the dimensions of scaling Kanban. So this is a slide from the Kanban Systems Improvement class from Kanban University. The dimensions we talk about are height. So this is the one people usually think of when they think about scale. This is like portfolio level down to maybe some mid levels, down to the level where work is actually done, the team level or the delivery level or the service level, if you prefer. But how many levels is up to you. We often see three-tier systems. You may have come across Klaus Leopold with Earth flight levels. That fits into the height dimension. Make sense, everyone? I can only see two people, so no one's looking questioning. I'm going to keep moving on. Width. This is where we think about the value stream from left to right. So if you've thought about upstream and downstream, that's the width. So on the very left-hand side of width, we have somebody had an idea. On the very right-hand side of the width, we have, and I've got the thing in my hand. I can play with it, I can touch it, I can click on it. Again, that's a kind of an obvious one, but that's the width and the height. So I'm leading up to the one that people don't find obvious, which is depth. So that's a 3D graph. So the depth dimensions coming towards us. And the idea is that we want to think about all of the different services we offer. I'm going to take us through an example of that, but you might have multiple different services within your organization, each at that same level. And in fact, at each level, each of those, if I had a 3-level system, you'd have that depth there. So I'm currently working with the legal aid agency. If you ask what our services actually are, well, we offer criminal legal aid, we offer civil legal aid, and they're both through legal providers. And then there's a third service where clients can look at the information themselves to see whether they're likely to get legal aid before they find a provider. So they don't have to go to a lawyer first. So they're kind of like the 3 services we offer in our depth. If you go to a bank, they've got a relatively small number of services. So they've got current accounts, savings accounts, and ISAs if you're in the UK, mortgages, loans, maybe some wealth management investments. That's kind of it. Oh, payments, I suppose, are a service, but they're really part of retail current account banks. There aren't actually that many services at that top level in a bank. Does that make sense to anyone? Anyone got any questions on that before I move on? Natasha, go for it.
Is it the similar logic for multiple products as well? Like I'm in an organization where we have a hardware side of the product and we have the software side of the product, but both don't talk to each other. They're different ecosystems.
Well, that might be an example of, yeah, the depth. So you can actually go down to a finer grain thing. So I mentioned banks. Loans might be a single service, but you might offer 5 or 6 different kinds of loans that are different products within those services. So yeah, absolutely, your hardware business and your software business, which sound like they're interdependent in your organization, but hey, I don't know. Yeah, so that's the depth. And of course, you can have depth at each height. And we would want like for each thing that's across our depth to go full width end to end in Kanban. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Edge to edge, value stream. You've done value stream mapping. If you've done um, customer journey mapping using user journey maps, that's typically the end-to-end service like a customer would see that with. Nice and simple. So in Kanban, we often talk about upstream Kanban and downstream Kanban. Upstream's about getting your options and working out what options from all possible things you could deliver, what will we deliver? And then downstream is actually the delivery of them. Height, levels of granularity are really important. I remember the very first Kanban job I had was a place called UView TV, and we had one Kanban board for the organization. It was 2 meters tall and it was 30 meters wide. And there were literally tens of thousands of cards, index cards on that wall. We learned that if you put the sticky tack in the middle of the card, dead center, rather than at the top, you could put them on top of each other and get more cards on the space. Even there, we were trying to break our WIP limits just through the physical constraint of space. But yeah, so when somebody senior came and looked at that board, like the chairman did, he would just look at it and go, I have no idea what's going on. There's just lots of cards of 4 different colors, and we're clearly a long way from finishing everything. But where's launch? There was no way that that board gave him the information he needed to enable him to make better decisions. So that's why we need to think about that level of granularity. So if you're familiar with a certain other scaling method or tools such as Jira, you might think in terms of epics and stories, and maybe there's features in between, or maybe there's initiatives above. But we're talking about that level of granularity, and each board should be at the right level of granularity so it supports decision making at the level of the people using that board. So granularity is key when it comes to height. At each height, you have parallel surfaces. I'm saying the same thing twice. It almost sounds like it might be important that I've designed to do that. When we originally started doing software, we tended to think in terms of projects. And if you're into projects, you'll know that the unit of delivery is the resource. So you do all that resource planning and add resources, remove resources. Taking away resources makes it cheaper. Adding resources makes it quicker, but more expensive. That was the way people used to think. And we found how effective that was. Then we had the dawn of Agile in the early 2000s, really. A little bit earlier for some, but mainly in the early 2000s. And we got to understanding that actually it's not the individual resource, it's the team that is the unit of delivery, which kind of makes sense, provided you're doing Scrum as it's meant to be done, or professional Scrum as I would call it. I should out myself, I'm a professional Scrum trainer as well as an AKT. So I care passionately about Scrum being done really well. And in Scrum, we have cross-functional teams that do everything from start to finish. So they go full width. There's a lot of Scrum-ish out there where that isn't true. In which case, the unit of delivery is no longer the team, is it? We have to get out of that level of thinking and think about the end-to-end service. So if you're doing Scrum well, the service is the team, and the green one and the orange one are fine together. But if we're thinking about flow, we need to think about the end-to-end thing that the customer sees. I don't care if I'm trying to open a bank account, if I do some of it online, some of it on my mobile phone app, and some of it in person at a branch. I don't care about your organization when I do that. I think of my customer journey from end to end and actually getting my account opened effectively. Okay? So seeing things, services see things like customers see things. Doesn't follow the org chart, it follows a customer journey. So for this to work, we need to be end to end. Absolutely. But we also need to be aligned top to bottom. Because if you've got multiple different teams that are different shared services across the departments and organization that you're in, are they working from the same list of priorities? What if my area prioritizes one thing and another area prioritizes another thing? Bad times. We also need to think front to back because that's going to be the same problem. We don't want this. The organization saying, hey, we're all going that way. Sorry, I'm reversed. We're all going that way. But all the teams are going lots of different directions. So we do head that way, but not effectively. What we want is a fully aligned organization where everyone's heading in the same direction, has the same level of understanding of the priorities, what's important right now, and the strategy. That's the ideal. I mean, it's an impossible standard to hold ourselves against, I think it's fair to say, but it's where we're trying to get. So let's make this real. I like to think about, I've already given you one metaphor with banks. Let's think about Amazon. I assume everyone here has bought at least one thing from Amazon at some point in their life. No one's arguing. I would hope you would. So one of the services would be audiobooks. I use that because I like an audiobook. Nice to listen to in the car or on the train. Video streaming. So I like to watch Amazon Prime, some good TV on there. Last One Laughing's out in the UK. We're liking that right now. And I also might use Amazon Music and listen to music streaming via that as well. Hey, I'm paying for the service. Why not? There's also that other very small service, which I'm calling buy stuff. You know, when it's somebody's birthday and you want a present for them, that. And that's the service from somebody had an idea about buying a thing to I've got a brown box in my head. So I know Amazon offers more than these four services, but I'm simplifying a little bit to thinking of just those four services. So this is all in the depth dimension. They're all full width from end to end. So we're demonstrating depth. Look, the arrow went and animated everything. I put time into this deck, honestly. Oh, it's really weird when you don't get feedback. I like being in a room. Right. So I'm going to now zoom in one level closer. So we've got those four journeys. Let's think about buy stuff because that's the one we probably use the most. So we probably understand the most. Like I said, from, well, actually, into Kanban. So we think right to left from I've got a package in my hand through to I fancy getting, or it's somebody's birthday, or whatever reason you have that compels you to buy something. I think this is a pretty good description of the steps that we have to take there. So somebody's got to buy and stock it because you can't buy it if they don't sell it. Then we've got to have a homepage because you go to landamazon.co.uk or your version of Amazon. Then you're going to search for something, which will return you a product list page, which someone's got to make. You'll then click on something, you'll see the product page. And you'll notice on that product page that there's a full-on customer review system where there are star ratings and a verbatim language in multiple different languages for what people think of that product. So maybe we need to have a translation service in there as well at the same time. You're then going to add it to the basket. So the basket service has got to be there. Someone's got to maintain and add stuff to that product as we go through. And in order to buy something, you're probably going to have to log in or register as well. And that's probably another team or two doing that. You've got to do checkout and you've got to be able to take payments. And of course, the way we take payments keeps changing. Then someone's got to pick, pack it and dispatch it. And then someone else is going to deliver it to you. How many teams do you reckon that is at Amazon?
20.
I'm going to say at least 20. Anyone think I'm an idiot?
One, but they're all AI.
Probably more, right? There are teams maintaining each of those different parts of the system, if you like. The scary question, I'm sorry, I clicked away, so my little click didn't work. Bear in mind, this is only one channel. So I haven't talked about the mobile app or the Android app or the iPhone app or the on your TV, because now you can buy stuff on the ad. It's really weird if you're watching Prime TV and an advert comes up and there's a little press here to add it to your basket. That freaks me out every time. It's like too integrated. So I'm just thinking one channel, one delivery channel. Never mind all of that. And actually, there are physical Amazon stores you can go and buy stuff from without checking out. It's very weird on that as well. Always freaks me
And
out, but it seems to work.
and through the
But this is
Alexa
a
app.
question I've got for you. Who is the most junior person at Amazon who has oversight over that entire end-to-end buy stuff journey? When you think about all of the heads of department, all the different things, I really honestly believe it's probably Jeff. Amazon Salon. Oh my God. Is that feedback, Helen?
No, no, I can't remember where I was. I think I was in
Put me, I
London,
looked
but I
up.
was like,
Anyway, but yeah, here's the thing. If nobody at a level that can actually deal with improving that service is across that service from end to end, then what you'll have are different heads of department for different parts of that organization in competition with each other, trying to look good because their department does well. Because that's what organizations like, right? They get political quite quick. We all wish they didn't, but they kind of do. But if no one's looking at that end-to-end journey to improve that end-to-end journey as the customer sees it, there's a fair chance you're going to get what we call local sub-optimization, where we make our little bit better without regard to the whole system. So we actually make the whole system worse by making our little bit better. This, I think, is the most confusing thing that we ever put in any of the Kanban decks for Kanban. Um, I think this one comes in Kanban systems improvement as well. Organizations are networks of interdependent shared services. So let's break that down. Checkout. If I'm at Amazon, do I want to write checkout for buy stuff and then write another checkout for Prime and write another checkout for audiobooks? Or do I want to use the same checkout once, the same set of payments once, the same logins and registration service once in multiple services? I mean, it's good for the customer, but it's also good for me. But now we've got a load of shared services. And that's what we typically see in large organizations. They are networks of shared services that are massively interdependent on it. So dependency mapping, when you're doing large services, becomes massive. And this is where we have the problem of scheduling work, not for one team, but for multiple teams across multiple services at the same depth. Sorry, at different depths at the same height. Easy to trip over your language, isn't it? Yeah, I don't hear people commenting. Oh, people commenting. Oh no, my sound's gone wrong.
can you hear me now,
I'm
Dan?
just going to restart my sound. I'll be literally 10 seconds.
No, you can hear me. I thought I was going crazy earlier on.
Hopefully my sound's back.
Can you hear me now, Dan?
And I can hear you now. So sorry, I've just been talking over people without realizing. I do apologize. Hardware. Ah, my software's not up to it, obviously, as well. But yeah. Any questions about this interdependent network of shared services concept? I know some people struggle to get their heads around that one. Okay. Interdependencies. That is the problem. Once we think about those three other services, we want to think about those. I'm not going to do a popcorn. I've worked out that the audio isn't working great. So these are what I think shared services would be across all four of those end-to-end services that I mentioned already. But there are probably others. And I haven't even mentioned HR or finance. But I'm going to guess they're going to get involved at some point. They usually do. I'm not going to mention governance either. So if I took two of those services, shared services like payments and search, I would imagine most organizations have those. If you're selling stuff online, certainly. Every shared service, every team's going to have a product manager, typically, because everyone likes to be a bit scrummish. So it might be a product owner, but some sort of manager of that product. And they're going to have a vision for their product. They're going to have a product backlog. They're going to have a roadmap. They're going to have delivery teams. All of that. That sound familiar? See, everyone's not talking now. Oh, I've ruined it.
Yes,
Um,
it sounds familiar.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. What if we have several competing top-level initiatives? Again, this is normal. There's more work to be done than we can possibly ever do. But imagine if we're selling stuff, Black Friday is probably something we really care about having products ready on time for. And so is Christmas. Because we won't have a Christmas shop where we give you suggestions of what you can buy for women in their 40s who are into dogs, or men in their 20s who like, oh, just buy them beer tokens. Actually, not beer these days, more likely cocktails. according to my kids anyway. But you know what I mean. We're going to give them good suggestions. So these are two initiatives, and they're kind of going to be running at a very similar time in the calendar. That's why I've picked the things that are going to overlap. We're going to need stuff from both of those teams. We're going to need stuff from payments and search for both Black Friday and Christmas shop. But product managers are mini CEOs. So they're going to determine. This could never ever happen, right? Where the product manager for payment says, I'm going to focus on Christmas shop, while the product manager for search says, I'm going to focus on Black Friday. So I am going to ask you to unmute and answer this question now. What just happened to WIP at team level because of that decision?
It's gone way out of the window.
Actually, that was my first thought as well. But no, it hasn't. At the team level, it doesn't change WIP at all. Because in the payments team, I'm just working on that one initiative. So the WIP is what the WIP is. And at the in the search team, I'm just going to be working on Black Friday. So my WIP stays the same. However, at organization level, at portfolio level, I've doubled it. So while WIP doesn't make itself apparent as a problem at the delivery level for a team, it's absolutely present in the organization. And that's a big problem, right? Because if we don't see the problem, we ain't going to fix it. And if only the people at team level are actually looking and doing retrospectives and doing all of the things that make us better, how are we going to even see that there is a problem or fix the problem unless we're making it visible at that level of height? And not many people do. This is why I think we're good at team level, but we're not necessarily good at Kanban at scale, and we're missing this trick. And it's making a big difference. So, how do we fix it? Well, old reference from The Martian. I want to see the new film. What's it called? I've forgotten the name of it, but the one about spaceships and aliens with Ryan Gosling in that just came out. Dying to see it. It's by the same author as The Martian. But yeah, we're going to have to Kanban the shit out of it. We are going to have to work this out at all levels. Hail Mary, that's it. Project Hail Mary. Awesome book. I read it on audiobook from Amazon. So we need top to bottom alignment. That's the first point. How are we going to map out our dependencies without putting 200 odd people on a video call? Have you ever been on one of those like quarterly planning sessions with 200 people on a video call? Was it a good use of your time? Wasn't for me. I've seen too many of them. It doesn't make sense, right? It's not an effective use of the time. And realistically, you're going to get it wrong and then have to replan it, which is a bit daft. So we need to limit WIP at all levels. By limiting WIP at all levels, that means at the top as well as the bottom. And that will reduce our dependencies because we're going to have less different things going on across the organization. This means we're going to have radical prioritization. Height gets its moment in the sunshine. So if we can prioritize at the top level and prioritize at that mid level, then by the time we're getting down to the bottom level where people are actually writing code, doing things, delivering actual service, we're going to be out of this problem. So the WIP at the bottom level was always not a problem, but at least we're all working on the same thing. So I'm not working on a thing that then gets stuck. So I'm not working on a thing in payments that then gets stuck waiting for somebody in search to do their bit on that initiative. So by fixing height, we start to fix depth. But we have to be aware of depth and we have to actively manage that. If we aren't doing anything to actively manage the depth and the height, we're not even going to know that there is a problem. We're just always going to be waiting for somebody else. And it's always going to take us ages to deliver those big things, even though we're quite effective within team delivery. Is anyone working in a place like that right now? We're pretty good at the team, but it takes ages to do big things because we're always waiting for another team to do another thing. And they're always working on something else that they think is more important because they're idiots. Sorry, did I say that out loud? That's how we think about it, though. If we have it visible, we can limit WIP. And we need to actively decide to do that. And that's hard because that means we're going to have senior managers having to go to other senior managers and say, no, we're not doing yours first. We're going to do Black Friday, then Christmas shop. But don't worry, you'll get Christmas shop quicker this way. So nested hierarchy of boards. It's not rocket science. It's something we've been talked about 3-tier Kanban in my very first implementation, because we had that big problem of everything was broken down to too lower level of granularity. It was obvious we needed to actually put things together, talk about big things. Wouldn't it be nice if you're a senior leader to be able to see that that thing that I think is number one priority for the organization, who's working on it at the team level, and which teams are working on something else instead? Are we aligned? Are we all heading like those little arrows together in the same direction as the big arrow? Wouldn't that be great? And wouldn't it be great if you're actually working for a living at the bottom level to be able to look up and say, actually, this is the most important thing that the senior executives are talking about. We are making the biggest difference we can to the organization right now. We can use that information to replenish our work, to replenish our boards. And of course, we should be thinking full width, which means replenishment happens at the first team it hits. If it's going from team to team to team to team, we don't make different decisions from different teams. We make that replenishment decision right at the start for the whole service end to end. Replenishment is important because we don't want to have to reprioritize once things are flying, because that's going to slow things down and incur task switch overhead, all those bad things. It's going to increase our WIP. So we want to make sure that everyone at the same height, but at different depths, is aligned. We're all working towards the same outcomes. Hopefully, you are already gone side to side, full width. Please tell me you have. If you haven't, forget everything I've said and fix that problem. If you can't fix your service end to end and get replenishment happening right at the start when it hits the first team, that's the only problem you've got to solve. Because until you've done that, you can't even think about aligning at different levels of height, and you can't even think about how you're working with different shared services. It's not going to be effective. So you need to get end to end first. So top down height, done. That was easy. All we have to do is actually say no a lot and actually talk at the right level of granularity and show that down. Front to back depth, well, that comes free, bizarrely, because your product managers on all of those different shared services teams can have that visibility about what's number one, what's number two, what's number three, what's in flight, what we're going to be finishing first. I can make the same decision because it's a no-brainer at that point. Well, why wouldn't we work on the number one priority? Well, because they don't need us. Okay, let's work on number two then. But we're always going to be working on the most important thing that we can work on to deliver the outcomes that the customers, or sorry, that the organization leaders care about. They're accountable at the end of the day. Like I said, width needs to be done. So I've told you lots of things you'd have to do. Make things visible at each level, get the level of granularity, say no a lot, and talk to each other is basically what you would have to do. But what you wouldn't have to do is change where people work. You wouldn't have to change your org structure. You don't have to change pretty much anything when it comes to job titles, roles, responsibilities, skills of the people in the organization. Maybe you need to do some little bits of work around portfolio management, making that visible, change the focus of some of the meetings that we already have, because we will already have meetings about those things, and make stuff visible. That means we can make better decisions and we can all see the same decisions. But pretty much nothing else changes, which makes it easy, right? Because we don't have to change people. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've been doing this agile thing a fair bit at a fair number of places, and people don't like change. And people really don't like extrinsic change inflicted upon them by some idiot who's come in as a coach because somebody senior got infected with the thing at some evangelistic event. I don't know if that's happened to you in your organization, or if that is you, I apologize. It's been me as well. It has to be that thing. But people don't like to be changed by other people. They just really don't. So let's not do it. What do you need to change? Well, how about if you care about end-to-end delivery of value, you make someone accountable for end-to-end delivery of value for each of those services, each service at that depth. Who's going to be accountable for improving that service to a customer end to end? Seems like a good idea to me because if you're looking at it and working on it, you're likely to improve it. And it turns out improving customer service is really important to most organizations. At least they say it is. Make someone accountable and responsible for facilitating risk assessment sequencing. So how do we decide what to work on? Everything's a risk, right? There's a risk of if we don't do this, like an opportunity risk almost. If we don't do this thing, we won't get that benefit. Oh, by the way, if we don't do this thing, we won't get that benefit is another way to describe a business case. If we do this thing, we will get that benefit. Probably, we think. Let's test it. Let's run some experiments. But if you're thinking about risk, there's tech risk, org risk, there's opportunity risk. There's lots of different varieties of risk, but they can be used to help you think about what's the most important at the very top level, the mid level, and at the team level. Now we can talk about sequencing. So I think I've talked about maybe one person across each end-to-end service and another person across each end-to-end service, maybe at the next level up as well. That's kind of the amount of change I'm bringing in here. We do need to have what's called mental proximity. So I'm stealing that from Jürgen Appello. I love this idea. You don't necessarily need to be physically close to each other all the time, but you do need to have mental proximity where you are close to each other and talking to each other regularly. You're all seeing and hearing the same things. You're all smelling the same things from the organization. You're all connected. So we're not just coming together for 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day. We're actually talking throughout the day with people around us and in different parts of the organization, and we're all seeing the same things. So that's kind of like mental proximity. So you can do it in distributed, but usually it's a bit more hybrid than that. You do need to come together every now and then and learn each other as human beings. You are going to have to change the focus of some existing meetings. I doubt you'll have to add any extras. You might even get rid of some. But if you've got that visual tool like a Kanban board, if you're looking at metrics end to end at those different boards at that different level, you'll have a much better understanding of what's going on. You can actually review how are your services going on an individual level. But at an operational level, that's what we often refer to as the operational review, where we look at how all of the different services are going and how they're working with and against each other as they run along. We'll have to just do some of those things. Now, I'm not saying new meeting. I'm saying, hey, you probably meet and talk about this stuff already. But instead of being who's the most erudite, who's the best speaker, who's the loudest, who won't shut up, you've got to be able to actually see the stuff and actually talk about the stuff that you can see. And then you just need to change some policies and say, we are going to limit WIP at those levels. We are going to focus on these organizational goals like that. We're going to make decisions in these ways. But actually, when you look at people writing code, designing stuff, building, testing, nothing changes. Just magically, it's all aligned a bit better, and we tend to be working on more important things that seem to finish end to end faster. So we get faster feedback, faster value to customers. So that means we don't stop working on things because it became unimportant. We didn't work on it yet, so we had optionality. The feedback from the first thing changed whether we did the second thing at all before we spent the effort on it. All of those benefits that Kanban's meant to offer you that we've been talking about for ages, they work at the organizational level too, and that's where we scale Kanban. Measures. I think what I took away from, we did a session on metrics at Kanban Edge in London recently, and it was a facilitated session. So I came in very much with capability metrics. We need to be talking about lead time and delivery rate, or cycle time throughput if you prefer. Language is the language. We mean the same things by those terms. But John, Alan's husband, feels weird saying that still, came in with, well, actually, it's all about the value metrics, value metrics, value metrics. And then someone else, I've forgotten the name of the person, said, actually, you know what? If we're not talking about team health and the health of people and having metrics around them, we're just going to burn people out. And I think everyone was right. I think we need to have all of those three things being measured all of the time if we want to be effective, if we want to be good at this stuff. So we need to not just focus on one of those three legs of the tripod. We need to be focusing on all three all of the time. Because if you do capability metrics without value, you'll just deliver more output. If you do just value metrics without capability, yes, you'll be focused on the right outcomes, but it'll take forever to get anything because everything will be fighting against everything else. And if you don't focus on the people metrics, you'll have a churn problem and you won't know it until it's too late. So you need to be thinking about all three of those all of the time, and one will be more dominant and more important at any given time, but it will rotate. Oh yes, Jürgen is Jürgen Appello. I should have said that. The guy behind Managing for Happiness or Management 3.0, which are very remarkably similar books with different titles. Yeah, I think a different kind of audience is going to buy Management 3.0 than will buy Managing for Happiness. But I like both. And yes, this is a cartoon of a cat doing Gangnam style. Sorry, Kanban style. So, shall I slide my slider? Sorry, I need to do that slower because, come on. I love the production there. And I'm going to remove the spotlight so everyone can have cameras on. And so, have you got any questions for me?
Hi, Dan, you mentioned nested hierarchy of Kanban boards. Can you, it's not a term I'm particularly familiar with. Can you talk about that a bit more, please?
Can I ask you which tool you use for your boards at work?
Jira and whatever.
Yeah. So Jira is the common one, right? So you might be familiar with having a Kanban board with what I like to call, I like to get into fruit. So in the UK, we say you've got to have your five a day. And like an apple is one of your five a day, but so is an orange, or so is a peach or a nectarine. But actually, you need a bunch of grapes to be one of your five a day. And you might only need one slice of watermelon to be one of your five a day. So can you see what I'm talking about levels of granularity? So if I'm talking, oh God, I'm accidentally doing things like hand gestures change my camera, which is weird. But like a watermelon could be like an epic. It's a big thing. It's too big to eat for one person all at a time. But actually, we might think about hand-sized fruit being apples are like user stories, whereas an orange is a task, and a nectarine is a spike, and a peach is a bug. They're all roughly the same sort of size, and while they're not exactly equal, that's all right because no two apples are exactly equal either. They're all different sizes. So that's the hand-sized fruit, and then the low-level stuff are like gooseberries or blackberries or grapes. So they might be your subtasks. Yeah. So if you've got a board that's working, firstly, get rid of the get rid of the mini stuff subtasks. They just make things worse. Always do. Always have. They just increase whip and increase handoffs and increase specialism and less working together and collaboration. But if we say that hand size Apple sort of level, that user story kind of level, that would be a typical board that you would see. But you can make another board in Jira, and that only has epics in. And you just change the filter so it says just show me the epics. And there you can see these are the five epics that are currently in flight because it turns out we only cared about limiting whip at the story level and we didn't think about epics properly. So we're working on multiple epics. And then you can have another board and next level up, which is initiatives. And say, well, actually, three of those five epics are part of that one initiative. The other two are part of another initiative. So you can actually have a board that's just got initiatives right at the top level for your portfolio. And that will have epics that affect 10 different teams at that next sort of mid-level down. So I can look at the epic level board and I can see where we are with that. Well, two epics done out of 10. And then I can see across to the team level board, this epic has stories in that team A, team B, and team C's board. So you end up with this sort of fanning out as you come down, where you might have, I don't know, how many teams do you have in your organization, Jared? Any idea?
No idea.
So I reckon my organization, Legal Aid Agency Digital, we're around about 20-ish, between 20 and 30 teams, roughly. And some are very focused on crime stuff, some are very focused on civil stuff and don't really meet much in the middle. But some are focused on technology parts because we've got old legacy tech and they need to look after by those people. And other people care about data and all of that kind of stuff. So actually, when you think about one big level thing that we're trying to deliver, that could have impact on 15 teams. And we might have 15 teams who've got user stories somewhere in a backlog that will help us deliver one epic. That's one part of one initiative. If we're not managing the epics effectively, we'll end up working on too many of them at once because we aren't limiting the WIP at epic level and we're not limiting WIP at the initiative level either. So actually limiting WIP at the top to the fewest it possibly can be. Or go on, one more if you really must. But the fewest it possibly can be, and then all the way down. It means not only is the team delivering as effectively as it can, but the organization is. That cover it?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Sarah?
I was trying to unmute myself. Just a quick question, because where I work, we've done the wonderful thing of asking our platforms to act as little mini businesses, which means they actually do their own prioritization under a very wide organizational set. But I'm struggling to see how you could, if you're asking them to act as mini businesses, how you can get them to work together to reduce their WIP because they've all got different priorities.
So
And we use Jira Align as well as Jira to help with the more senior kind of decision making and that visibility, but still WIP across the organization is way too high.
yeah, and I think this is the problem. I don't know Jira Line, I've got to say. I'll out myself. I know enough about enough tools. I'm not very tool specific. Currently using quite a lot of Jira for all of my sins and
Yep,
all
no
of the years
worries.
I've in class. I've said, please let's not use Jira. There are better tools out there that make things easier for you and not less hard. But there we are. That was my punishment. I got to use Jira. But yeah, I mean that itself sounds like a problem, right? And let me tell you a story. This one time at band camp, I was working at a large petrochemical organization and I was helping an exploration team. Now, exploration teams come up with proposals of where we're going to drill for oil. And it takes 9 months. It just always takes 9 months to come up with a proposal that gets through the people who make the decisions because it's going to be a yes or a no. And if it's yes, that's committing hundreds of millions of pounds. So it's very serious business for those people to make that decision. And they've spent years and years learning the ropes. So I went in with the team. We used Scrum and Kanban with this one team. And our proposal was finished in 3 months rather than 9. And all the managers were happy. I can tell you that the end result, by the way, they were right. The proposal was good. There was what they said was there, was there. But the proposal was done in 3 months, saving 6. And I went to the head of exploration. I asked, so what? How does that affect you? And he says, I guess I can do the next one 6 months earlier. But what does it make to the income of the organization? Oh, yeah, I don't care about that. Why not? Well, I don't get that money. I don't get credit for that money. The head of operations gets credit for that money. I said, how much money? And I went and found out, and it's $10 million a day when you're pumping oil. And we brought that forward by 6 months. That's $1.82 billion they made in a year that they would not have made otherwise. And even if you're in a large petrochemical organization, that makes a big difference to your bottom line, just going to say. But the guy in charge didn't care about $1.82 billion because it wasn't his department who made it, even though they made the change that enabled that. Can you see the problem with how big organizations think?
Yeah.
We don't think end to end horizontally. We don't think systemically, systems thinking end to end. We think systematically because it's too big to understand. We'll break it down to small chunks and we'll call those departments. And most organizations have the same hiring structure such that there are lots of people doing technical roles and junior middle management roles. That's like the biggest bulge is very senior techies and junior managers. You know, people with the Peter principle going on. And from then on in, it's a pyramid because there's only one person in charge of the whole organization and they've got a board of like 10 people and they've each got 10 to 100 people working for them. And it's like a pyramid all the way down. How do you get promoted in a meritocracy? Well, highest head wins, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to hold. I reckon I can hold 4 heads down while I'm pushing mine up. I'm not working in cohesion with the other heads of department. I am in direct competition for my next promotion with them. So if I do a thing in my department that will make them look good, that's actually against my own interest and against my own bonus. It's helping out my competitor. Isn't that mental, by the way? That
Absolutely.
this is just accepted as how we should run organizations. Rather than go horizontal and go actually end to end on the whole value stream and thinking in terms of the depth rather than the height. So that I've not answered your question at all there, Sarah, have I? I've just said, yeah, that's dumb, don't
No.
do that. And
Yeah.
it's easy for me to say I don't work in your organization. I don't have to get anyone to believe me. It's nice and simple for me. But
Yeah.
and you are there. But no, I mean, I've got my own dumb problems to deal with, trust me. But it is kind of bizarre when you think about it in that sense. I will say a success story in this. If you cast your minds back to, say, mid 2019, you've probably worked out where I'm going. And if I asked you in 2019, how long does it take from start to finish to develop and finish testing a vaccine? The answer would be somewhere between 10 and 20 years. In 3 months, we went from start to finish, and I think we had 7. All of the steps of testing were done, exactly the same as in the 20-year process. All of the same work was done, but there was no waiting for a budget meeting. There was no waiting to get access to that machine or that person with that information. And actually, beyond that, the pharma companies even shared information with each other rather than treating everything as a trade secret. So rather than limiting WIP to a project within a single pharma company, we are limiting WIP across the entire span of human endeavor in pharmaceuticals, ignoring company boundaries and limiting WIP. And look what we did. Now, you can talk about whether you liked them or hated them to your heart's content. I don't care which way you're going to lie on that argument. I've been there before, and that's a down the pub conversation. But the fact is, the work happened in 3 months instead of 20 years because we chose as a species to say, that cancer drug, it matters, but it doesn't matter as much as this does right now. So we're going to work on this. We will expedite this. We will focus only on this. We will work on this to everything else's cost. And that's terrible for a lot of the medical conditions. But hey, the one that mattered at the time, the one that was killing the most people at the time, we attacked it and we made that decision, and look how it went. Radical prioritization. It's a thing. I think that definitely needs to be the name of a book. Somebody quick, go out and write a book called Radical Prioritization. I reckon that's got mass market appeal. You'd get money out of that one. You wouldn't have to put too much in there for it to sell. Titles sell books, right?
Any
Any
more
other questions
questions?
before I
Matt.
witter? Or witter even more, I should say. So can I just re-hit the salient points? What you've heard some stuff, so what? If you are not making the different levels of Kanban board visible in your organization, from portfolio, if you need a mid-level or not, I don't know, it depends on your structure, or even multiple mid-levels, down to the actual end-to-end delivery at the bottom level, you're not going to be able to align and limit your WIP because it won't be visible. You will be going on in ignorance that you have too many things. You'll know there's a problem, but you will not be able to quantify that problem and therefore talk about that problem and visualize the cost of that problem. So you need to make things visible at height. You need to understand the depth and make sure that when you've got services that are in competition with each other, because that's the nature of the beast, that we are looking up at the height and understanding this is number one, that's number two, that's number three. Therefore, the shared services that everyone depends on, like payments, like registration in the model I gave to you, can make the same decision because it's obvious. We can just all see the same thing. We need to make sure we're talking at each level from end to end and someone's accountable for that delivery. And we're actually communicating about this and measuring at each of those levels. Now, I guarantee it's already someone's job in every organization to do that. Ish. The language might be different to what they think their job title is, but I bet they're not doing that. Unless you're really lucky. If you're really lucky and you're doing that in your organization, I'd love to hear from you and see how it's going, because I bet you have some really interesting different problems. But do remember, if you haven't sorted width, end-to-end, single service, and decide to replenish only once at the start and reprioritize once at the start of the end-to-end service, that's the problem you need to fix first. With Kanban, we start a single service end-to-end, then another, then another, then another, and then we worry about the height. Did I hit the headlines? I think so.
Yeah, let's give Dan a round of applause. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for coming back to us.
Oh, it's lovely coming home.
Thanks, Dan.
And thank you,
This
everybody,
is
for
my home.
joining us. It is your home, Dan.
Oh, Dave's got a hand up now. Or is that I clicked hand up instead of a remote?
No, I do have a question. You mentioned start at the teams and then work your way up to scale. So I'll be honest, I haven't seen an organization yet that is doing any of this, right?
Whoa.
So do you come up with the top-down view, let's say the value streams that do exist, so that you can align them and then start implementing them from the bottom up? Because I think what people are doing is implementing at the bottom up without a vision of the macro.
That's exactly the problem, Dave. People are often really good at this at the bottom level, or mediocre it is,
Yeah.
your choice, and at the bottom level, but we're not thinking about the other levels even effectively. We just know there's a problem. You can smell it, we can see the shape of the problem, but we can't really see the problem. And that's it. So I would actually say you don't start top down or bottom up, or you need to start in all directions. You need to be bottom up and top down and front to back as well, in thinking about the depth. So what I would typically say is get one service end to end, right? And that's at all levels. And then get another service end to end, all right, and that's at all levels, and so on. And
Gotcha,
as you're
gotcha.
going up, it's not just a triangle, it is a pyramid in that at the top level, you'll find it comes forward and back across the depth into all of those different services as well. But if you can't sort out one service, you've got no chance of sorting out the rest of the organization. So do one service pretty well, then another, and now we have to start going up the levels.
It's so much disruption. Nobody wants to do that.
But that's the thing. Not much needs to change. It's just making it visible.
Who people report to and what people in leadership are responsible for, that's what changes, and that really makes them uncomfortable.
No, that's the thing. It's not about who they report to. You don't need to change the departmental structure. You just need to make it a no-brainer that we're all making the same decision. So it becomes less about who my boss is mates with, who they go to the running club with, or down the gym, or to the pub, or whatever, and more about, well, duh, number one's that, right? So we must be making the same decision in each of the depths at each different height, that's the most important thing. So it starts from just making it visible, because it makes it undeniable. I mean, you can still make dumb decisions after you've got the information. I mean, I always think it's interesting that Jacinda Ardern, who was in charge of a small island nation during COVID, with exactly the same information as Boris Johnson, who's in charge of a small island nation during COVID, made opposite decisions. One of them says we're closing the borders, and the other one says I'm going down the hospital to shake hands with COVID patients. And I'm going to tell you, dumb luck is a thing, firstly, and secondly, sometimes you look at the information and make a dumb decision anyway. There's no protection from being dumb or just being unlucky. Those are two things that will happen, and off we go. But if we at least make people make that decision, it starts from visibility. It starts from transparency. And we need to be transparent all the way up and down. We can only be transparent if we're visible. And then, like I say, if the organization changes later, great. You don't have to do that. You don't have to change those departmental structures. You just have to make it obvious that, saving the organization 1.6 billion is probably a good idea.